The SPY continues to consolidate between support and resistance after breaking out of its rising wedge. The QQQ finally makes a full measured move of this head and shoulders pattern as it retests its ascending trend line of its rising wedge. The VIX looks to be rounding the bases and head for a full measured move of this descending triangle pattern. Google reports earnings after hours and explodes higher, breaking out of its inverse head and shoulders pattern. AMD reports lackluster earnings and falls 8% in aftermarket trading. Microsoft breaks out of a giant pennant pattern here on the 4-hour time frame and now signals new all-time highs in the near future. Meta reports earnings on Wednesday, and an aftermarket trading today, oddly enough, reaches new all-time highs. Coinbase has earnings on Wednesday, and after retesting the upper level of its descending price channel, now signals 263 is upon us. Amazon breaks a critical resistance levels and now signals a full measured move of this falling broadening wedge is upon us at 201, making new all-time highs. Apple reports earnings on Thursday, and after retesting the upper descending trend line of its pennant pattern, is now signaling new all-time highs is to come. Welcome back, everybody, to High Quality Trades, the channel where I provide top-notch technical analysis on the stock market, where we go over simple support and resistance levels, trendline breaks, and pattern formations, and I give you the price targets of where price is headed in the coming days. So let's get into it. First up, we have the SPY on the 4-hour time frame. Today is October 29th. The most recent close of the SPY was 581.77 and reached a high of 582.91 and a low of 578.43. We were positive 0.16% on the day. Alright guys, so what is the SPY currently doing? So it looks to be just consolidating between support here at 577 and resistance up here at 584. Until the SPY breaks one way or the other, we don't have any direction to trade in yet. So to get a feel for where the market may head, let's zoom out and look at the patterns that have formed on the SPY over the past couple months. Recently, the SPY has broken to the downside out of a rising wedge pattern. This is ultimately a bearish formation that signals further downside is to come on the SPY. But this is not the only pattern that we notice here on the SPY. There's also an ascending triangle which is broken to the upside, which is a bullish formation that usually pushes price higher. So we're actually torn between a bearish and a bullish pattern at the current moment. In my experience, I would say that bullish patterns complete more often than bearish ones. So I'm going to go over the ascending triangle pattern and lean more bullish than bearish at the current moment. So this ascending triangle ultimately completes up here at 620. So if we were to just take the measured move and move it over to the breakout point, that 620 is where it's signaling. Now, what I would first expect from the SPY is us to get half the measured move. So if we were to take about half this measured move, it would put us somewhere around this 591 level. So based on that, I would say if the SPY can break above 584.77, then it's going to head up towards 591. But if it breaks to the downside, below its 577 support level, then it's most likely will head down to 574. And if it broke that support level, then we'd have another support down here at 571. To get a better idea of where the market is most likely headed in the next 2 days and going into the end of the week, let's now drop down into the 15-minute time frame and just take a look at our 200 period moving average, which is this blue line here. So today we managed to close above this moving average towards the end of the day. Now this is signaling for a price to run up towards the 584.77 level. As long as price continues to push higher and we remain above the 200 period moving average, this is a bullish signal for price to continue higher. But if we do fall below this moving average, that would signal price will head down towards 577.72. And if we remain below the moving average, then we could break this support level and head down towards our next support level of 574.86. So that's the bullish and bearish scenario for the SPY going into the end of this week. Now let's head on to the triple Qs. So one thing I've been talking about here on the triple Qs for the past couple weeks is the triple Qs had broken out of a head and shoulders pattern to the upside. And a full measured move of the head and shoulders signal for price to run up to the this 501.49 level. I believe I was saying 502 just to round it up, but technically it looks like this 501 level was hit today, and I'm going to say that that's a full measured move of this head and shoulders pattern. So now another thing to be aware of is as we reach the full pattern completion of this head and shoulders, it also coincides with this ascending trend line of a rising wedge pattern. So it kind of looks like it's just retesting the ascending trend line as resistance, and it could push lower off of this level. So the triple Qs cannot hold support here at 539, then that could mean that we're headed back down towards 594.51. But if the triple Qs manages to remain above 500, then that will signal that 505 is the next resistance level, which would be new all-time highs. So just like the SPY, the triple Qs has a bearish formation, but also a bullish one. So not only do we have this rising wedge pattern, the triple Qs over the past couple months has broken out of a pennant pattern as well. Now if we were to take the measured move of this pennant by just taking the opening and moving it over towards the break, this signals that the triple Qs in the coming days to weeks and maybe more like months should reach up to 559.87. Now because we don't get a full pattern completion as quickly as the pattern formed, what I'm first looking for is about half the measured move to complete before we can continue any higher. So if the triple Qs wants to continue the bullish price momentum, we first need to break above this 505 level and create new all-time highs. But after that, I would be looking for the triple Qs to head up towards 513.55. Now to get a better idea of where the stock market is headed in the coming days, let's drop down into the 15-minute time frame and look at our 200 period moving average. So today the triple Qs tested our moving average as support and then exploded higher off of it. So as long as we remain above this 200 period moving average, this is bullish for price to continue higher. But one thing I will say is we've gotten quite extended from the moving average at the current moment. So a pullback may be in order just to find buyers and then continue on higher. So come tomorrow, what ultimately may happen is we close the gap a little between the moving average and price, then we can continue on higher. But if we fall below this moving average, that could signal that the triple Qs will head down towards 494, and if that level was to break, then we'd head down towards the next support level, somewhere around here at 491.87. Right now, with the moving average curling upwards and starting to ascend higher, this is a bullish signal for price action to continue in the coming days. Alright guys, that's it for the triple Qs. Let's move on to the VIX. So the VIX looks to be holding support at 1810. As long as the VIX can hold this level, then we should be headed up towards the 2335 level. The VIX will first need to break resistance of 2098 before we can head up to that $23 level. Now, a few weeks ago, the VIX actually broke out a descending triangle pattern that you see here. So if we were to just take a measured move of the opening and move it over towards the break, that signals that the VIX will run up towards 2405. That's where I'm looking for the VIX to head up to before some bearish price action can continue on the VIX. Now, to get a better idea of where price may head come tomorrow and into Thursday and Friday, let's look at the 200 period moving average here on the 15-minute time frame. So now the VIX is above it and holding it as support at the current moment. It is starting to curl upwards, which could be a bearish signal for the market, but bullish here on the VIX to push the VIX up towards that $20 level. It would be a bullish signal for the market if the VIX was able to fall below this moving average and then ultimately it start to curl downwards and then we head lower towards our support level at 1810. That would be the bullish scenario. So if the VIX was to break below the $18 level, then it would head down towards 1577, which would be the next support level. But let's also go over a bullish scenario here on the VIX. If it breaks above resistance at 2098, then it'll head up towards 2335. Alrighty, now let's go on to the stocks. First up, we got Google. So Google reported earnings today, and it looks like we had a surprise of $1.8 billion in revenue, which pushed the stock higher. So it looks like Google is trying to fill a gap out on the daily time frame. It ultimately doesn't fill until around the 183 level. So it looks like Google still has some room to run. This is quite a big gap down. But we're looking for Google to try to fill this gap based on the explosion in price that happened off of its earnings. So let's drop back down into the 4-hour time frame and see how far. We almost reached it. So it could be tomorrow morning that we head up towards the top of this gap at 183. Now ultimately what Google has done here is broken out of this inverse head and shoulders pattern. So if we're to just take a measured move from the neckline down to the head, move it over towards the break, this now signals that Google should reach upwards of new all-time highs in the coming days to weeks. This pattern ultimately took about 3 months to form, so we can expect somewhere in that time range before Google can reach upwards of this 192 level. Alrighty guys, that's it for Google. Let's go on to AMD. So it looked like AMD was retesting its descending trend line here, this long-term descending trend line, and then was getting a push off of it. But with the bearish price action from earnings today, we've fallen back down towards support at 154.55. AMD needs to hold this 154 level if it wants to continue any higher. If come tomorrow we open up below this level, then that will signal for 148.05 to be hit as support, If we're falling below that level, then we don't have any support until 143. But if we manage to hold this level, that could mean AMD will head back up towards 169 in the coming days. Alrighty, that's it for AMD. Let's head on to Microsoft. So today, we ultimately got a push out of this pennant pattern here on Microsoft. So if we're to get a full measured move of this pennant, then this now signals that Microsoft is going to reach upwards of 516.29 in the coming weeks to months. Now, what I would first expect from Microsoft is we need to get above this 441 level. But if we manage to do that, then that will signal that Microsoft will head up towards 469.34 after that. So Microsoft has earnings tomorrow after hours. This could be a really bullish signal that Microsoft is going to push higher on its earnings. But I will not say that's for certain. Earnings, there's always a 50-50 chance. That's the way I take earnings. So if you're going to play this one, you have to realize that it's 50% to the upside or 50% to the downside. So good luck figuring out which way that one's going to go. Microsoft is a strong company and it usually beats on earnings. But I cannot say for certain that this one will be a beat and then we head higher. But based on this pennant pattern, these are now the levels that Microsoft should reach up to in the coming days to weeks. Alright, let's go on to Meta. So Meta also is going to report earnings tomorrow after hours, and this one is now reaching all-time highs. So we've broken above resistance here at 605.15, and so if we remain above this level, that is bullish for Meta to continue moving higher. But if we were to fall below this 605 level, then we'd head back down towards support of 580. We do have an ascending trend line here that if we were to fall lower, we should have more support at this trend line as well. So it ultimately looks like we have a price channel, something like this, that Meta has been ranging in between. So it is possible if Meta beats on its earnings that we can head up towards 641. But if it has bad earnings and we fall lower and say we break out of this price channel, that could signal 539.03 to the downside. That's it for Meta. Let's go on to Coinbase. So Coinbase has ultimately retested and held its upper descending trend line of this price channel. It's actually a really big bull flag as well, but we'll just go over the price channel today. So right now we've bounced off our descending trend line and headed back up to resistance at 222. If Coinbase can get above this level, then it will head up towards 234.01. Coinbase also has earnings tomorrow, so this could be a bullish play based on the retest and the push higher now. But earnings is always 50-50, so I cannot say for certain which way that Coinbase will head tomorrow. But based on the retest, we should be headed higher in the coming days to weeks. Now, if we just get a full measured move of this price channel, based on the bullish breakout, this is signaling for 275.09. So we'd first have to run up towards resistance of 263, and if we broke above that, we could hit that 279 level. But it is possible that Coinbase heads all the way up to 283.37. Now say Coinbase cannot hold this 224.16 level and we head lower, we have support at 213, and if we were to break below that level, we'd have support at the descending trend line again, which would be somewhere around 202. But if we broke that level, the next support level would be 195. So those are the levels to the downside and to the upside. So let's see what happens tomorrow here on Coinbase. Now let's go on to Amazon. So Amazon back in July had started forming this descending broadening wedge that ultimately Amazon broke out of back in September. So if we're to just take the opening of this falling broadening wedge, move it over to the break, this does signal that Amazon comes and retests all-time highs at 201.31. Today in aftermarket trading, we pushed above our resistance level here at 191. Now it looks like we're headed up to these highs here at 195. If Amazon breaks above this resistance level, then that will signal that Amazon can make new all-time highs in the coming days to weeks and push above the 201 level. Amazon has earnings on Thursday, so watch out for this one. This could head either way. If we cannot hold this 191 level, then we will fall back down towards support at 181. If that level breaks, then the next support level is 174. Alrighty guys, let's move on to Apple. Apple reports earnings on Thursday, and this one is signaling a push higher. Based on the retest of this descending trend line, this upper descending trend line of this pennant pattern, Apple is signaling new all-time highs in the coming days to weeks. If we were just to take the opening of this pennant, move it over towards the break, Apple is signaling the 270 level is to come in the next weeks or months, going into the end of this year and on to next year. Because this pattern ultimately took 3 or 4 months to form and break out of, it's going to take somewhere in that range before we reach up to this level. So what I'm first looking for Apple to do is at least get half the measured move of this pennant pattern at 251.95. So right now Apple is struggling to get above its resistance here at 233. We need to break above this level before Apple can head on to new all-time highs. If we remain below this 233 level, then we'll head back down to its support at 229.80. And if that level broke, we don't have any support until 227.15. So based on earnings that's on Thursday, we'll have to wait and see what Apple does. But this pennant pattern ultimately signals for bullish price action to continue here on Apple. Alrighty guys, and with that, that's going to be the end of this video. I appreciate you watching high quality trades. I'll see you guys in the next video.